Hey everybody, this is Jim McBride for Fire for Effect, episode 2. And I'm solo today. My other co-hosts are had scheduling conflicts. So today I just wanted to talk about some more in depth about the name of this podcast, Fire for Effect. We talked about a little bit on episode 1, some of its military connections. Um, Marines or Army or Special Forces will call in artillery strikes, and once the artillery hits its target, then the people calling in the fire will uh, can say fire for effect, which means you found your target. Go ahead and fire away. Um, but we're looking at it. Me and my other co-hosts are looking at it from a bigger perspective than that. And the logo we have for the podcast, at least so far, is a sword being forged in fire, um, which is a cool image, and that's kind of how I'm seeing what the term "fire for effect" means to us collectively, the co-hosts of this podcast. All of us have different backgrounds, come from different states, different circumstances. Um, Several of us are military or former military. John is small town farmer in North Carolina. But no matter what your background is, you live long enough, you're going to go through the fire, so to speak, the challenges of life, um, and you're going to either sink or swim in different circumstances. And at times we all sink, and then hopefully we all come to the surface and learn to swim when we're faced with new challenges. And we all do, different parts of our life, every single person. In fact, if you don't go through challenges in life, you don't. You're basically spoiled. Could get spoiled, and you don't develop character and all that. So that's kind of the entry point. I want to talk about this. But the fire for effect. What does that mean? So when you're faced with fire and challenges in life, um, again, that can be a good thing, could be a really bad thing. It feels bad at the time. It almost always feels bad at the time, unless you're going through some kind of a challenge willingly. But even then, like if you're training for a marathon or something very physically challenging or mentally challenging, like trying to get into med school or pass the bar, you're taking on those challenges willingly. It's still challenging. It's still, physically painful, mentally painful, etc. But it's especially challenging when you don't plan for rough circumstances that hit you in life. So, how we respond to the fires of life, the challenges of life, has a big role in what the effect is. And throughout my life, I graduated from Marine Corps boot camp back in 1992. I think it was August of 1992. Um, and I found out throughout my life, that was a long time ago, but throughout my life, I've used the boot camp analogy and it, to describe many aspects of life challenges and how to overcome them, and even how boot camp is structured. So I wanted to use that as an analogy today to kind of paint the picture of what I mean by fire for effect. But first, again, back to that sword being forged as a symbol for this podcast. Um, did some research with Grok AI and asked it how the ancient Greeks forged swords back in the day. And it said they primarily used bronze and later iron with technologies that evolved over time. And then they take that iron and they melt it down. So the smelting and preparation phase. So if they use bronze, which is a combination of copper and tin melted together in a crucible over a charcoal fueled furnace, often using bellows to reach temperatures around 1,000 to 1,200 degrees Celsius. The molten alloy was poured into clay or stone molds to create ingots or rough blade shapes. So that was for bronze. For iron, it was melted in a bloomery furnace, producing a spongy mass called a bloom. Then it was hammered into the various shapes. And then when they forged the blade, they would heat it again. The metal, either bronze or iron, was heated in a forge until malleable, red hot for iron, around 700 to 900 degrees Celsius, and a little bit lower temperature for bronze. And then they'd hammer away at it to get it into shape over time, and then shape it. And then they'd harden it. They put it in contact with carbon sources called carburization, which would absorb carbon to form a harder surface layer. Then they'd quench it and plunge it into water or oil to rapidly cool it, which hardens the edge even more. And then they temper it to reduce brittleness. The blade might be gently reheated to a lower temperature. And then they'd finish it, polish it, that kind of stuff. Point is, a lot of steps into creating a blade or a sword that's worthy of combat. But it all starts with the fire. Starts with the resources, the material, and then you put it into fire. None of the other steps can happen if you don't put it in the fire. So when I think of the effect, if the metal was melted in the fire and that's where it ended, it would cool into a hard, it would melt into a puddle and then harden that way into a round, puddle. And that's it. Would have no real purpose. That is an effect, but it's not a very good effect, not a very useful effect. But if all these other procedures in this process, from the smelting to the forging to the hardening and the tempering and the finishing, are put into place and used in conjunction with the melting, the fire, then it becomes a formidable weapon and very useful. So I'm going to use, again, a boot camp analogy. I got some videos lined up here to show you. I'm going to start with, a lot of people don't know that Marine Corps boot camp. So again, I was a Marine, am a Marine, once a Marine, always a Marine. I did Marine Corps boot camp for enlisted, and then I also did officer candidate school when I became an officer. And they're distinctly different, but have a lot of similarities. But enlisted boot camp is unique, and it has this thing at the end. So, and Marine Corps boot camp is about 13 weeks long. It's the longest boot camp of all the services. Unquestionably the hardest of all the services: Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Force. And it ends with this event called the Crucible. And I, as an officer candidate later on, had the opportunity. When I went to boot camp in 1992, we didn't have the Crucible, so they came up with that event, and it's a several day long event after I went through boot camp, so I didn't get to experience it, but I was able to see it as an officer candidate. So we were at Quantico, Virginia, and they bussed us as candidates, either as candidates or maybe as the basic school. I'm not sure, but Parris Island, South Carolina, Marine Corps boot camp, and we got to witness a Crucible event. And it's pretty powerful, pretty emotional. So I'm going to show that to you right now and use this as part of my analogy. So let's see here. So it starts with the Crucible is, again, a several day long thing. I'm just going to kind of cut to the end, and it ends with a long hike, and then they get to the top of this hill. So that's where this starts.
Reaching the summit marks the completion of the Crucible. At the top, as the sun rises, the recruits stand before their drill instructors for the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor ceremony. The Eagle representing the United States, the Globe for worldwide service, and the Anchor for naval heritage. It is the emblem of the Marine Corps, placed into their hands by those who forged them.
I want you to notice, for those who can see, I know if you listen to the podcast, you can't see, but you can hear the emotional music and you can kind of get a picture in your head of what this is about. But notice if you can see, and just, I'll tell you if you can't see, that every recruit that's receiving this Eagle, Globe, and Anchor in their palm, every one of them is in tears. These are, as they receive these Eagle, Globes, and Anchors in their palms after almost 13 weeks of training, the whole time they're not called Marines because they're not Marines. They have to get through the crucible to become Marines. So now officially they become Marines. And you can see every one of them are crying. Men, women, doesn't matter. And that's what I saw myself a couple decades ago when I went to see this in person.
And in that moment, they are no longer recruits. They are United States Marines.
So pretty powerful. Get my screen back up here. So it's obviously a really powerful experience. But I want you to think about something. That those tears and that ceremony isn't powerful just because of that ceremony. Now, the ceremony itself is powerful, and even the crucible itself is very challenging, and it leads, culminates into that ceremony. And it leads to those tears and very emotional, powerful moment. And it would be powerful even if all it took to be a Marine was to go through the crucible, which is about, I think it's like 4 or 5 days long, very physically demanding, and ends with that ceremony where they get the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor. But I'd be very, very willing to bet that it wouldn't be as powerful for those individuals, because that's not all they went through to get that Eagle, Globe, and Anchor. So now I'm going to play you what the beginning of boot camp is like, the first couple weeks of boot camp, and this is how boot camp is more or less for almost 13 straight weeks. And if you haven't seen this, it's pretty mind-blowing. And I just want to show you this because this is really why the crucible and that moment of getting the Eagle, Globe, and Anchor really, really means something. And this is really the fire that they go through as Marines in boot camp. This is a recent video from the last couple of years, I think. Hasn't changed a bit since 1992. This is your life for 3 straight months.
You have to talk like the chill. Every time I say ready, move, it should be like an explosion. Do you understand? Yes, sir. Okay, scream. scream at the top of your lungs. Aye, sir. Landing on the rack, ready, move.
And this is all psychological right now. There's no physical here. But the physical intensity is equally as challenging.
At no time will your linen touch the deck. Do you understand?
This is just them teaching them how to make a bed. And it's this tense, this intense.
Let's go. Let's go. Hold it up. You that guy?
Right here, sir.
Get back.
Now watch how these DIs are so intense the whole time. Look at this. They're covered in sweat, this guy. Both of them. Uniforms are covered in sweat because they're just so intense the whole time. So you know all these recruits are sweating bullets as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Anyway, so I'm just illustrating that is truly why that ceremony at the end of boot camp, the Crucible, is so powerful, because that's what they went through, and to finally, and I'm telling you, when you're in your first couple of weeks, you're questioning why did you decide to do this? Like, this is the dumbest idea you've ever made in your life. But by the time you get to the end of it, you've transformed. Every single person that goes to boot camp by the end of the 13 weeks is completely transformed. Even if boot camp is easy for them, quote unquote easy for them, or if it's hard for them, whatever, it's just a transformative experience that just can't be replicated. So that's why that Eagle, Globe, and Anchor ceremony at the end is so powerful, where all these young men and women are in tears, every one of them, because it means that much to them, what they've gone through together, and they know that they've been transformed. They've been through the fire, and now at the end of the 13 weeks is the effect, because the drill instructors are bringing the fire and also forging them and also tempering them and also shaping them along the way, whether the recruits understand that or not. There's a lot of instruction that goes in during those 13 weeks. It's constantly instruction. That's all it is. It's physical fitness. It's psychological, challenging, and also just constant instruction and learning. And those DIs do a phenomenal job putting their lives and souls into it. It's one of the most stressful jobs you could of anything you could possibly have as a Marine Corps drill instructor. So that's the forging of the materials that the human being standing in front of those drill instructors, and they pour fire all over them. And it's the drill instructor's efforts to train them and to mold them. It's also the recruit, the human being, the individual that chooses how to react to that fire. And the combination ends in, after 13 weeks, with a United States Marine, for those who make it. There's many that don't make it. And that's the effect. So when I think of fire for effect as the term that we're using for this podcast, that's kind of the theme in my head that drives and will shape a lot of the discussions that we'll have in this podcast over time. Because we all go through the fire, like I said, obviously, and especially the longer you live, the more fire you go through, and everyone has different fire. But how do we use those experiences in life? And we'll talk about how all of us, and we'll interview people, and these will be the center of a lot of our discussions as to, how we've used those challenging events in our lives with our faith, and how's that affected our faith, with our character that's been built over time, instilled by our parents, instilled by other people around us? How do we individually react to challenges, at different phases of life, from, a toddler to high school to if college, for those who went to college, in the job market, living life, building a family. There's challenging aspects to every single phase of life. And how do we respond to it? Who do we turn to in times of challenge? Do we turn to, do we develop relationships and people that we can trust to turn to? Do we turn to God? Do we turn inwards and become more selfish and not see the opportunities from the fire that we face in life? I know I've learned some hard lessons, including at OCS, Officer Candidate School. I remember distinctly, that was, 1998, I think it was. I was very disappointed in how I handled Officer Candidate School. I graduated, no problem, but I didn't respond to the stress as well as I thought I would, especially having gone through boot camp. I turned very inward. It's kind of self-protective instead of outward and helping my fellow candidate. And that's one of the big aspects of boot camp and Officer Candidate School, is they're throwing fire at everybody with a flamethrower, as an analogy. And how do you react? Do you turn inward to protect yourself and take care of yourself, or do you turn and help your buddy next to you? That's one of the big things that they're trying to instill in you, is that if you have people going through the same thing you're going through, you should not rely on your own strength. You should rely on your buddy. When I went through in 92, they even openly talked about, relying on your faith. And, at every moment, you decide how you react to those situations. So that's it. Again, don't have any co-hosts today, so I want to keep this one short. I just wanted to kind of tell you one man's perspective, one co-host perspective on what Fire for Effect means to me, and how I think it'll shape the future discussions on this podcast. So I hope you keep listening. If you like the last episode and this episode, share it with other folks. Like it, do all that stuff. Like it, share it, and let us know what you think so far. Looking forward to releasing another episode next week. Thanks and God bless.